and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the PAUK network. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and as always, we are joined by the stupendous Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello, darling. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. How's your week been?
Yeah, rolling on. It's getting a bit laborious now, all this lockdown malarkey, isn't it?
We're in lockdown. When did that happen?
Oh, God, it's rolling on. I mean, you understand the reasons why, but seriously, I'm starting to get a bit cabin fevered now.
Oh, I'll tell you, I'm working on overtime already this week.
I know, you're working like a dog and I'm rolling around on my chair.
You're off into the job and what do you want overtime?
And we've not even got our lovely Richard around either. It's like, what the hell's going on?
Oh, no. Very, very strange him disappearing like that, isn't it?
It's very strange times, is all I'm going to say. But we are missing you, Richard.
Definitely, yeah.
Don't think we're not.
I'll be back.
Oh, he'll soon be back.
I think, as soon as he gets back, he's going to be taking over the first show.
Yeah, I think we should just sit back and let him roll with it.
He's just going to push us aside, and he's like, no, I'll take this one.
Yeah, let's hope so.
We know, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting times.
Although I do know that in his little bit of a respite from the show, he is actually reading our book.
Is he now?
Yeah, he's having a really good read of our book. Incidentally, it's available on Amazon if anyone wants to buy one.
Nice plug.
Absolutely. It's called Paranormal Concept Extra. So, yeah, take a look and, definitely buy it. It's an amazing book. You'll love it.
Well, it was really nice last night. We actually got interviewed by the Power Experience group. That was good. And they'd all bought it. And it was like, that was really weird.
Yeah, and they recommended it to all the friends, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
If you want it, go along to paranormalconcept.com and have a look under our publications page. It's in the menu. Have a look at that. And we've actually got 2 books available.
Mm-hmm. We do. The Book of Parasearch.
That's 500 pages of paranormal plethora.
And it's different from the usual ghost hunting book. It covers a lot of concepts, mythology, our personal thoughts on certain things, ideas, all sorts of things. And it is a bit different from the normal ghost hunting paranormal book that you see out there.
It is, absolutely.
Right, one thing I would like to say on this, which has come up recently, it's come up because Richard Estep, who is a paranormal writer out there, I think a lot of people probably know who Richard Estep is. Now, he's released a book, and it got plagiarised. Somebody went and basically downloaded his entire book and then uploaded it and are trying to sell it. So they're selling a fake copy of Richard's book. All they've done is change the front cover a little bit. Now, he found 5 different versions of that out there on Amazon. So when you are buying on Amazon, please make sure that you're buying the original authored copy, not one of these plagiarised copies that are out there. And for any author that you might buy, including us, obviously, but any author out there, as I say, this has come up recently for Richard Estep. And obviously, that's very impactful on someone's business, on their time and effort and energy that they've put into a project.
Not to mention research is put in.
Exactly. For somebody to come along and just take his work basically and earn off the back of that. That's just awful. And to say, yesterday he found 5 different accounts where somebody had done that with just one of his books. He's reported it to Amazon, but he said it's a bit like a Hydra. You cut off one head and they just set up 5 new accounts under 5 new emails and do it all again. So I've actually come a cropper on this as well. I once upon a time, a long time ago, I actually interviewed a guy who had written a book, Graham Smith, and I shared the link thinking it was the right book I'd shared, and I hadn't. I'd shared one of these plagiarised copies. Didn't realise. Obviously, the minute I realised, I reported that particular link and then changed the link on the post that I'd put out. But it shows you how easily done it is.
Oh yeah, of course it is, and I think so many people have got so much time on their hands at the moment.
Yeah. So
But
just be
anyway,
aware of that.
but then anyway, no, you don't want to buy E-Step's book. You want to buy ours.
Well, of course, but,
That's it. Sorted.
just shows that there's a problem out there, though.
Yeah, the official links are on our website anyway.
Yeah. Go for the official links every single time,
Yeah,
guys.
definitely. Anyway,
Yes.
that's boring stuff now. So let's get to the show.
Okay, dokes.
Yeah. So what's the amazing topic for us tonight then?
Well, we've gone for a different tract, really, this week. We're going to look at animals in the paranormal. And when we sat there one night, as we do, as you guys all know, we sit there on Skype and talk about the show and direction of the show and, what we're going to bring up next for you guys. We thought about animals in the paranormal. Now, this actually came off when we was looking at the Penny Dreadfuls. Do you remember we did the show on the Penny Dreadfuls?
Yeah, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And Spring Hill Jack actually started from a ghost story, effectively. Somebody had apparently seen a ghost of a bull, and this kind of spread, and then it changed and it evolved into Spring Hill Jack. And that came through on the Penny Dreadful show, so go back, check that one out, because that's really interesting. But we got talking. We got talking about this. And then we started going down different rabbit holes in regard to animals in the paranormal. You could go in so many different directions with this one. And so Paul went, let's have a look. So we had a look around. And one of the first things is, obviously, the Tower of London. It features quite heavily, I would say, at various times in the shows that we do. It's a major landmark in London. It's a very iconic place to go to. And it's been trending. We started talking about the ravens because one of the ravens in the tower had gone missing recently. The Queen, Molina, however you say it or spell it, because I saw two different spellings out there. She went missing. She disappeared.
Do we know where she went, or was it just a case of like she nipped down a calf?
No, well, they think that they go off when they're like poorly. Generally, they won't just like keel over and peg it. They'll disappear off. So they think she's either gone off to die or she got caught by something. But the ravens in the tower are incredibly well looked after, so it's unlikely that she got nabbed by a cat or something like that. And they don't go far because their wings are clipped to keep them sort of like local to the tower. It's not unusual for them to fly off and come back. I mean, obviously they're so well looked after, they know where their bread is buttered, as it were. But she disappeared, so they assume that she's gone off somewhere to die, which is a real shame.
It's a bit unfair to blame the tower cat, though. Old Tiddles.
I don't know if they've got a cat, actually. They must have.
Yeah, Tiddles. Everyone knows that.
Not Beelzebubbles like you normally come out with.
No, Beelzebubbles is a witch's cat. No. No, the tower cat's called Tiddles.
Ah, okay then. Right. Yeah. But there is a myth surrounding the ravens at the tower. The myth is that they should have 6 in residence, otherwise Britain will fall. Yeah. The monarchy will fall. So anyway, this led us down a little rabbit hole on reading this in the media recently. This sort of kicked us off on the animals in the paranormal. So this is where we're going. So we started off with ravens, good old ravens, big black birds, make a lot of noise. Do you know what a group of ravens is called, Paul?
Isn't it a murder?
No, that's a murder of crows.
Oh, okay. I don't know then.
It's an unkindness of ravens.
Oh, okay, because they're not quite crows.
They're not crows. Different bird completely.
But they're not. They look like crows, but they're not. So that's why they're that and not a murder. Because maybe it's an attempted murder.
No, crows are a murder of crows, and ravens are an unkindness of ravens.
Yeah, because they're not quite crows. That's what I'm going.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they're not evil enough.
Well, I kind of then went down the hole of why. Why is it an unkindness of ravens? Why do we get these group names for animals? There's loads of them.
They're weird, some of them.
We've even done a category in our quiz nights of these, haven't we?
Yeah, we did.
Groups of animals.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had to look at that. And there is speculation as to the origin of the term. Now, some say it's regarding the symbolic association with witches and death. You know, think of witches and death, think of ravens, apparently. But they're also very kleptomaniac, right? So they'll go into other birds' nests and kick out the eggs, a bit like the cuckoo does. They're a bit like that.
Yeah.
They don't like... they're quite territorial animals. So if they see another bird in their territory breeding, they'll get rid of it. They're not happy with that.
So they do it unkindly.
So that's why they're called unkind, because they're unkind to other birds, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I could go with that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, this has been researched, though. I love this. Whenever we look at something, we'll find somebody who's done some research on it. The Institute of Research in Game Resources discovered that ravens have a significantly lower impact on population growth of their prey than other predators. So it doesn't. It's a bit poor ravens, basically. It's like calling them an unkindness. It's not really. They're not that impactful.
Right. Okay.
Compared to some others that are around. So, you know, it's also could stem from the 19th century belief that the birds were not the most caring of parents. So basically, as soon as the birds, like the baby birds, are even given an inkling of being able to survive on their own, the parents go, off you go then. And sometimes they do that before the birds are ready, before the baby birds are ready.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot worse. I mean, isn't there like a species of bird, something like I don't know, they sort of all breed on top of this giant rock, and it's just a massive cliff drop. And then when the chicks are old, when the chicks are born, they literally push them out and they fall down the side of this cliff.
What?
Yeah.
Where's that?
Those nature programs. Well, I have no idea, but I see it on one of those nature programs.
Got to be in Scotland
Little
somewhere.
chick is sitting there, and then all of a sudden, his dad or his mum or whatever would just push him off, and all the way down there fall.
Don't they fly?
No, they literally fall to the ground, and they bounce all the way down. You do. That's exactly what I thought. Everyone that see it, I would imagine, would be in awe at it. But the chicks actually survive.
Oh.
I know.
Ready for the predator. There's probably like a million predators at the bottom waiting for this as well.
Yeah. I'm going to have to Google that to see what bird that is now.
Yeah. Isn't nature cruel at times?
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is why they're called an unkindness of ravens. That's their collective name. But actually, in the wild, you very rarely see a load of them together. If you see a lot of them together, it's going to be either rooks or crows. Generally,
it's Arctic geese that do that.
Oh right, okay. Ooh, nasty Arctic geese.
Just jump straight off the top, fall miles to the floor, bouncing all the way, and then they get up and walk away. Oh, that was fun. Do it again.
Lovely.
Right, carry on.
So anyway, ravens. Back to ravens. You would see generally in one or two. Very rarely do you see a massive group. In the wild, this is. If you see a mass of them, it tends to be a rook or a crow. Okay, they all look very similar. Not going to lie, it's hard to tell what's a rook, raven, and a crow. Anyway. They don't know exactly when the ravens first came to the tower. There's no record of the very first ones coming to the Tower of London. But now their presence there is surrounded in myth and legend, right?
Yeah.
Bit weird, because they are generally considered an ill-omened bird.
Mm-hmm.
But the legend says that at least 6 ravens must remain, lest both tower and monarchy will fall. Well, again, no idea why. But in Welsh mythology, the god Bran, the Blessed, is a guardian of Britain, and his totem is a raven. Now, Bran ordered his own head to be cut off, which after they did that, apparently it still was able to speak words of prophecy, you know. But his head is allegedly built, even buried. I'm going for there.
We
go with buried under Tower Hill, which is obviously at the Tower of London.
Okay.
And Bran is Welsh and Irish for raven.
Ooh.
So that's where they think it might have come from.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Protector of Britain, buried at Tower Hill. His name means
Like,
raven. It kind of fits, right?
yeah, absolutely. We'll go with that one. We'll lock that one in.
I thought that was quite a good one, that one. But again, it's a myth, so who knows, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the very first Royal Observatory was actually housed in the northeastern turret of the White Tower. Now, John Flamsteed, who was between the years of 1646 and 1719, he was the astronomical observator. He moaned to King Charles II that the birds were interfering with his observations. Right, so the king therefore said, right, we'll get rid of them then. Ooh. However,
Dangerous.
very dangerous times. But he did order their destruction, only to be told by the rest of the court, the other men going, don't do that. You've only just hit the throne. Remember Charles I, Charles II?
I think it was that Harry Enfield character, wasn't it? Do you remember the guy that used to go, yeah, we don't believe you wanted to do that?
Yeah, somebody said that to the king and said, look, you've only just got back on the throne. We've only just got through the Civil War. We really don't want to upset it. Might just be a myth.
Rid of the ravens. Now, I don't believe you wanted to do that.
Yeah. Anyway, he changed his mind after being told that great disaster would befall the kingdom, and literally he thought, okay, maybe there's a point, don't want to tempt fate. So he changed his mind and then decreed that at least 6 ravens should be kept at the tower to prevent this disaster. And that since then they have always had 6 ravens there. They're really intelligent creatures.
Yeah, they are. All of even like crows and blackbirds and rooks and all that sort of type of bird, they're all intelligent.
There is a lady, she feeds them, and as thanks they bring her little gifts.
Yeah.
This isn't at the tower, this is somewhere else, by the way. But I saw that, and they will bring her little gifts to say thanks, and then she'll feed them. How great is that? I've always wanted
that's
to
it.
do
I mean, they tested, wasn't it? One of I can't remember which species of bird it was. I mean, it was a black bird, but whether it was a blackbird or something else, I don't know. But that they filled like a glass of water up, but didn't fill it all the way to the top, so the bird couldn't get to the water. So what it done, it just kept picking up stones.
That's right.
And throwing the water, so the water come closer and closer to the rim until it could drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magpies are really like that as well. Really intelligent. I had a magpie in my conservatory, my crystal room. I keep all my crystals out there. And in the summer, obviously, all the windows and the doors are open in the conservatory because, that's what it's for, right? And there was a magpie in there after my pretties.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah.
I was like,
but now all you've got to do is go on your website and pick what he wants from there, doesn't he?
Well, he wasn't going to pay for them. He was like being a thief. My God. I was like, I don't know who was more surprised, myself or the magpie. When I went in there, I was like, oh my God, there's a magpie. Because they're quite big. They're quite big. Anyway, we've got off ravens again. Right, so the ravens in the tower today, this is like real time, are Jubilee, Harris, Grip, Rocky, Erin and Poppy.
Oh.
And you'll find them housed next to the Wakefield Tower. And there's a specific person called a Raven Master that looks after them.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they do clip their wings so they don't stray too far. And because of the way it's a bit like when you see birds of prey in the zoos, they'll always come back because that's where they're cared for and fed. You go back to your regular source of food. So now and again during falconry displays, you'll hear one goes like off on a wander, but generally they'll always come back. Yeah, of their own volition. They just go for a little wander and come back.
Didn't one of them go to the pub?
Yeah, that was a little while ago. Yeah, Grog. He was last seen outside an East End pub called the Rose and Punch Bowl in 1981. Now, he had been at the tower for 21 years when he did that.
He's an obvious drunkard.
Typical name, though. Right name, right bird, right?
Oh, absolutely. Grog, yeah.
But I did find one that was actually dismissed for bad behaviour as well.
Okay, what was he doing?
He kept destroying the antennae, like the aerials that they've got around the tower. Because they do have the beef eaters live there, so they have aerials and things like that. And George, this was in 1975. Well, no, he was there at 1975, and then they had to move him on and give him to a different zoo. They put him to the Welsh Mountain Zoo in the end because he kept destroying things. So he was like a naughty raven. He was dismissed from duty.
Maybe he just worked for a rival TV company or something.
Maybe he did. Who knows, right? Maybe he knew cable was coming.
Exactly. We don't know.
Maybe it was ahead of the times. Now, it's really hard to tell the difference between a lot of the blackbirds. There's a lot of different, there are differences. Some of it's in the call that they do. I'm not even going to attempt it. But generally, if they're in flight, you can tell because of the tail shape. Mm-hmm. So the ravens is a diamond-shaped tail, whereas the crows is rounded. But to be fair, when I was looking at pictures of this, I was still thinking, yes, it's similar.
Yeah, just they're black. That's it. That's all you need to know, isn't it, really?
But they're all kind of part of the same family. So, and also in the feathers, ravens are black, whereas crows do tend to have sort of an iridescence to them in the right light. Yeah. So there is slight differences to the trained eye, I would say.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Right, so I then went into the mythology of them. Now, the word, sometimes it appears in Scottish places. Strathbran, so Bran, obviously meaning raven, that appears in Scottish places as well. Now, that is in the Valley of Ravens.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's also in Game of Thrones, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bran Stark was the three-eyed raven, or he was visited by it, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Why do you think they called him that? Because he could see through the eye of a raven. Couldn't he go up in flight?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Didn't really see that Game of... I really need to check that out. Everyone keeps talking about it and I ain't got a clue what they're talking about. I think I saw the first series.
You haven't seen Game of Thrones?
I've seen the first series.
That's disgraceful. Right, when the show there on that bombshell.
Well, I go off and catch up all 100 series of it. Yeah, no. I've seen clips, obviously, and when it's trended, when the new series come out and it trended, and I kind of know how it ended because everyone was talking about it. Spoilers, all I'm saying. But yeah, I haven't actually. I've seen the first series. It was good, the first series, I will say that.
Oh, it gets better.
I'm sure it does. Anyway, Bran, obviously Bran meaning raven. That's why he was called Bran. Ah, there you go. Arthur. King Arthur is another legendary guardian of Britain. Famous king. He's surrounded in myth and legend himself, isn't he?
He is, yeah. In Sigil there.
Mm-hmm. In Cornwall, it was believed that Arthur didn't really die, but was actually magically transformed into a raven.
I thought it was a like little dicky bird or not reindeer. Robin Redbreast. I've seen Disney's version of The Sword in the Stone, and Merlin I'm sure they turned into like little birds.
They may well have done in Walt Disney, but don't forget, Disney always sanitises a story, and ravens have got not a very good reputation.
Yeah, but you're just saying that he just turned into a raven.
Well, that's the original legend.
Oh, I prefer the little dicky birds.
You prefer the Walt Disney version, do you?
Yeah.
Now, ravens are carrion eaters, so you would not have been away from them on a battlefield, basically. So the Celts, very warlike kind of tribe, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Yeah, they would have been very familiar with them. Now, their Irish goddess, the Morrigan, has a number of different guises, and one of those is a raven. When ravens appeared on the battlefield, they would put it down to Morrigan.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Didn't like the Roman Empire use crows, ravens?
Yeah, we come to that.
Okay, I'm jumping ahead. Okay.
You are jumping ahead, yeah. Shh.
I'll put up.
There's a Scottish legend of a hag called... No, I'm not Scottish, and I do apologise in advance to any Scottish people that may be listening to this show. Cailleach.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Mm-hmm. She took the form of a raven as well and feasted on men's bodies. Rah! I think after death, because they were quite warring as well, weren't they?
Yeah.
The different
absolutely. I think that's why ravens were used after the battlefields, because they're just free food, aren't they?
Well, they are carrion eaters. That is part of their job. So, part of their reason to be around.
Free buffet for them.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to provide it, they're going to be there, right?
Absolutely. Of course they will. They'll bite your head off.
Whipping all the way over now to Norse mythology, Odin was always accompanied by a pair of ravens. They had names, Hugin, who was thought, and Munin was memory. They would fly far and wide to bring news of Odin, and one of Odin's names, Hraknagog, means raven god. And I know I've said that wrong too, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was the right pronunciation.
Rafnagod. Oh, whatever. Anyway, that means the raven god. Odin had a couple of ravens as pets. Nice. Love it.
Yep.
And in the Old Testament, going back to our Bible lore, the raven is the first bird that Noah sent out to look for land. Elijah is described as being provided for by ravens, and they are used as a symbol of God's providence in both the New Testament and in Christian art. I didn't know that. I always thought it was a dove.
Yeah, I thought that, to be fair.
But didn't he send out a few birds?
Yeah, he wanted to hedge his bets, didn't he?
I think he sent a raven first. I don't know if he sent... Anyway, yeah. Obviously it didn't come back, whereas the dove did. The raven was like, I'm off, mate. See ya.
Yeah. I found land. I ain't flying away.
Now, there is a very, very famous poem by Edgar Allan Poe called The Raven. It's quite a long-winded one. It's quite mysterious, actually. If you read it, it's very atmospheric, right?
And The Simpsons did it as well for one of their Halloween specials.
What, Edgar Allan Poe's poem?
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah. It was on The Simpsons and they were doing it, and Homer was Edgar Allan Poe, or the character that he was talking about, and Bart Simpson was the raven tapping at his door.
You do come up with some information, don't you?
I'm just a mindful of it, I tell you.
If I ever want pop culture, I always go to Paul, because he always knows these things, and I'm like, what? Really?
And Doctor Who.
Well, you wanted to do a show on The Simpsons, didn't you?
Yeah, about their premonitions. I think that'd be quite interesting.
I read an article that they say that the guy who wrote it was a time traveller.
Matt Groening.
Yeah, he's actually a time traveller.
Yeah, no, I don't buy that, but I do see when things happen, like for example the President Trump thing and everything going off about him and being president. It was predicted in The Simpsons, but I'm not so sure that some of it's like photoshopped, especially when there's like posters in the background, sort of like promoting what's going on, or like the premonitions. I think sometimes people writing it and stuff, and then they go, Simpsons, like, told you that years ago.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to comment, really. I know a little.
We get Matt Groening on.
Maybe we should. Anyway, back to Edgar Allan Poe. He is an American short story writer, poet, critic and editor who is actually famous for his cultivation of mystery and macabre. Rah. Now, I'm not going to read the whole poem because, trust me, it goes on and on. It's a bit of a snores fest, to be fair.
It's interesting.
But it is very interesting, yeah. Now, I've got the last verse for you, so I'm just going to give you the last verse. And the raven never flitting, still it sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
Yeah, the first verse is a lot catchier.
There's a lot of verses to it, but I did sort of wonder what he was trying to get at when he wrote that. And he said that he chose to focus the poem on the death of a beautiful woman because it is unquestionably the most poetic topic in the world, and he hoped the raven would make him famous. Well, it is quite famous.
Yeah, it's been on The Simpsons. You made it when you made it to The Simpsons.
I did come across a lot of cross references actually between the raven and a wolf.
Yeah.
The cry of a wolf. Have you ever heard the cry of a wolf?
I have, yeah. I actually met the wolves they used for Game of Thrones.
Did you?
Yeah, we went. I went to a convention, Game of Thrones convention, and they had the wolves there. And the second year that we went, they didn't have the original wolves, but they had their cubs.
Wolf cubs.
So, yeah, little baby wolves.
Oh.
So yeah, they had those, and they were so much better. I did try and walk away with one under my coat, but they weren't having any of it.
No, I didn't have any of it. But when you hear the howl of a wolf, it definitely, there is something about it. It does put your heckles up.
Yeah,
it does.
It is quite freaky.
Like the hairs on the back of your neck rise up.
Mm.
But ravens and wolves are actually quite symbiotic. You see a lot of relevant, things that are in common between the raven and the wolf. Part of that is because in nature, ravens will follow wolves because wolves even kill, and eat. And ravens are carrion eaters and they're scavengers, so they will finish off what the wolves don't have. So it makes sense that they'll follow the wolves, around.
Yeah, it's to pick up their scraps.
And it's actually called gralloch, the guts of the deer or prey.
Okay.
It's called gralloch.
I'll take your word for it. I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that either until I did that. But again, our whole mythology surrounds wolves.
Yeah, of course it does. In so many cultures as well.
So many different cultures. So first of all, Rome, obviously, was one of the first things that came up. The Roman myth is that they were the founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus, right? The twins.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the myth is, again, names everybody. Amulius, who was the king of Alba Longa, had ordered the twins' death by throwing into the Tiber River. Now, the river god calmed the river and the basket was caught in the roots of a fig tree at the base of the Palatine Hill. That's where Rome would be founded, right? The twins were discovered by a she-wolf called Lupa, who suckled them, brought them up, and then they founded Rome.
Right.
And this is depicted quite a lot, a wolf suckling Romulus and Remus. There's a lot of artwork and statues and stuff. And the wolf then symbolises Roman power. Okay. Now, right. I found another reference to this because everyone's taken a literal translation from she-wolf. Okay, but Livy, now I thought who the hell was Livy when he's at home? Now, he is Titus Livius, who he was born in 59 to 64 BC in Venetia, which is now Padua in Italy, and he died in AD 17, so we're going back in time, everybody. Now, he is one of three of the great Roman historians. So basically, he wrote down the history of Rome. Now, he goes through the complete history of the city of Rome from its foundation to the death of Augustus, right? but he was writing it under the reign of Augustus. He's quite biased. He does sort of like focus on the triumphs of Rome rather than the bad bits of Rome, so he's quite biased, but it doesn't matter. He tells us of a wife of a shepherd who raised Romulus and Remus. Now, prostitutes back in those days were called she-wolf.
Okay.
So they actually think, or actually, they were called loopers. Sorry, loopers. I'll get this right in a minute. Prostitutes were called loopers. The twins were rescued by a she-wolf, and they think that it was a shepherd's wife that rescued them. And they think because she was unchaste, she was a bit loose, she got the nickname of she-wolf, and that's why the story is now they were saved by a she-wolf. That's been literally translated into an actual physical wolf, when it may not have been. It may have been a person that was a bit loose, free and easy, and maybe even a prostitute.
Okay.
So we're not 100% sure. It could have been either.
Yeah.
Right? But it does sort of make more sense, to be fair.
It does, yeah.
But the depictions in art, it will always be a wolf. And the wolf was the symbol of power.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was a lot of themes there. And they didn't really want the founders of Rome to be brought up by a prostitute, quite frankly. It's never a good start.
No, they wouldn't, I suppose. You know, it's a bit... I suppose back in that period of history, it was like... That was like the job that no one wanted.
Mm. It wasn't uncommon back in the day, though.
In the ranks, I think.
Yeah, but it's not uncommon in olden times to have a nursemaid. You know, somebody who would suckle your child for you. You know, like you would give the child... If you wouldn't produce milk or, you know, you were too high in society, you would hire a nursemaid anyway. So that thought of a baby suckling milk from somebody who isn't their natural mother is not unheard of.
Yeah, you'd hire a wet nurse, and that was a Roman idea as well.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, so when you think about it, it's not unheard of that wild animals will take over in regards to children, but it's more likely to be.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you get all that sort of... You get stories like that in whatever culture. I mean, you know, we had Tarzan, didn't we?
Yeah.
A group of monkeys. You know, and what was it? What was the other one? Oh, the Jungle Book. That was a story about a child being brought up by wolves.
Yeah. Well, was it a panther?
No, it was wolves. It was Arcada and Arcada and Raksha, I think.
Oh, is that where the scouts get? Oh,
Yeah, that's where all the Cub Scouts get their names for it's Jungle Book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the wild wolf was also a companion to the god Mars, and he was the father of Romulus and Remus. Again, we get this gods coming down and mating with females, which actually, when you think about back to last week's show, that's a theme that's in the Bible as well.
Oh, absolutely, and you know that. Yeah, when the gods came down and mated with human women or whatever, they give birth to the demigods.
Yeah,
because I think Perseus was the son of
Zeus.
Poseidon.
Son of Zeus, Perseus, weren't he?
No, I thought it was Poseidon. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. There's so many of them. They bred like wildfire.
But
the theme of something above, something from the creator coming down, like a god coming down and mating with a human form is actually. We spoke about this last week when we was talking about the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, so. You know, Mars did the same. Apparently, he came down, and he was the father of Romulus and Remus. So it kind of makes sense that an actual physical wolf would come to their rescue. rather than a prostitute. But
Even
then again...
Even Hercules was a son of a god. It was Hera, his mum.
Yeah, she wasn't a very nice character.
No, but he was. A lot of people claim, say his name's Hercules, but there's a lot of conjecture with that because they think it's Heracles instead.
Totally different topic.
It sounds better.
And there is actually, when you look at Roman and Greek mythology, sometimes the names get confused as well. So you've got like the same character but with a different name, or the same god with a different name.
Mm-hmm.
So you have got like a crossover there. But there's quite a lot of mythology or legends where the Romans would find the wolf coming to their aid as a messenger, like an angel, in a wolf form.
Yeah.
Right, now when the Romans and the Gauls drew battle, they were having a big fight, right?
Yep.
A hind, a deer, was pursued by a wolf that had chased it down from the mountains. It fled across the plain and ran between the two lines. They turned in opposite directions. The wolf ran towards the Romans and the deer ran towards the Gauls, right? The Romans, oh my God, it's a wolf. That's like one of our messengers. That's like a god creature. That's like, oh, power of Rome. Opened up their ranks, right? And the wolf passed between them. The Gauls, on the other hand, went, deer, food. Killed the deer. Right? The Roman side then used that against them, basically, and went, that way you get flight and slaughter, and where you see the beast lie slain that is sacred to Diana, whereas on this side of the wolf, who's sacred to Mars, unhurt and sound, has reminded us of the Martian race and of our founder. And I've quoted that from this guy, Livy, because it's quite flowery. Whether or not that actually happened or not, we don't know. But Livy also reports at other times when a wolf would wander inside the walls of the city as a portent, like a messenger, for good or for evil. Now, again, I'm going to quote, a wolf entered the city through the Porta Esquilina, the busiest part of the city, and ran down to the Forum. It then ran through the Tuscan and the Carcernalian, whatever that is, wards, and finally escaped through the Porta Carpena, almost untouched. So, you know, this mythology and this belief system in the power of wolf is quite strong.
Yeah, I mean, you said like it's an omen of the good and bad. So basically, if you see a wolf, something's going to happen. You don't know if it's good or bad. So when something happens to you, oh, that's because I see a wolf the other day.
Just pay attention, basically. Something big's coming.
Yeah.
There's a storm on the horizon. I saw a wolf in Tut City.
Well, not even something big. You know, you could have quite easily dropped I don't know, one of their pots of wine or something on their foot. That's because I see the wolf the other day. That's what he was telling me.
Well, they took this so seriously that every time an event like this happened, they would actually do an animal sacrifice to ward off the wrath of the gods. So whenever this kind of portent was seen, this wolf situation was seen, they would then do a massive sacrifice to help ward off the wrath bit and get the good bit.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. Now, we mentioned feral children. I did actually look into that because that interests me from, because it's one of those, is it nature or nurture? Why people behave in specific ways. And when we look at feral children or children that have been brought up by animals, and there's lots of different types of animals on this one, not just wolves, but we were focusing on wolves for this particular show. You look at behaviour, and where do you learn your behaviour and your sense of conscience from? And if we have no guidance like that, we are living off pure instinct, which you would be in the natural world.
Yeah.
How does that impact you from your personality and your nature and nurture thing? It's a fascinating topic, but I did find one. It was an Indian kid called Shamdaya. Now he was found in the forest in 1972 playing with wolf cubs. and he kind of resembled them. He had sharp nails, calluses on his hands and knees. His hair was matted, so he wasn't kept. And he was fond of eating chicken, and he craved blood, which he would do if he'd been brought up on kill, effectively. Yeah. Now, he was taken back to civilization, but it was kind of too late. He never learned to speak like a human, but he did understand sign language.
Yeah.
And in 1978, he was actually admitted to the Mother Teresa's Home for Destitute. He was then his name was changed to Pascal, and he died in 1985.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's quite reminiscent of the Jungle Book. And if you do look at the animals, when they find babies or even small children, I mean, look at when that little kid, was it London Zoo? He fell over the wall of the ape enclosure.
Yeah.
And you had the big silverback or greyback or what they're called.
Yeah.
Walk over to him and, make sure that he was all right. Give him a little nudge and he knew that he was hurt. So that's when his protection instinct come in. And he kept all the other apes away just so that this child could get help.
Mm-hmm.
So again, with the Shando, Pascal, whatever his name was, it's the same thing. I mean, he was found, obviously, I reckon he was found as a baby by the wolves, and it was the mother that actually nurtured him and brought him up.
Uh-huh.
So I can understand why animals would do that. It is part of their nature, isn't it?
It can be. Yeah, it can be. I mean, there was a famous scene, again, going back to the nature program, where a leopard killed a monkey and didn't realise there was a baby, literally a newborn baby monkey on the back. And when the leopard realised, it actually took care of the baby monkey.
Yeah, you get stories like that. I mean, we was watching. I was watching an elephant show the other week, and an animal zoo, and the mother died of whatever disease it had. I can't remember. But the baby elephant was left, and you could see that he actually understood that his mother weren't there anymore. Mm. And when they moved the baby elephant to another female giant, an adult female elephant, she sort of took him in, and looked after him. So I think, it's one of those nature's instincts to protect children.
Cross-species surrogacy.
Exactly. And, I believe in that.
But I think it does, for humans, it does raise questions, doesn't it, in regards to your development, the development process. Because, Pascal never was able to develop into, and I'm going to air quote, normal, a normal human. He always had traits. He never learned to speak. He could do sign language, but we see that in monkeys, don't we? Yeah,
absolutely. But he was probably better off with the wolves, to be fair.
I didn't look any much deeper into that case. There might have been a physical disability as to why he couldn't speak. I don't know.
But all his basic needs were catered for.
Yeah.
Leave him with the wolves.
Well, they didn't. Because then we get this thing of we have to take care of our own, and we find one and we look after them. But there's lots of cases. I mean,
looking after, because the wolves are doing such a good job.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of cases of feral children out there for different animals as well. It wasn't just. I found the wolf one, obviously, because we were talking about wolves, but there was chickens. There was one where a kid had been brought up by chickens, rabbits, all sorts of things. I mean, some of these are abuse cases where the child is actually put into the chicken coop or into a room with just rabbits. Do you know what I mean? So, although they're not actually brought up by them in the wild, they are brought up with them like that animal. There's a slight difference, isn't it? Because there's an abuse situation gone on there as well. But it's fascinating. If you get a chance, guys out there, feral children, go check it out, right? Really interesting. But anyway, I then popped over to Greek mythology.
As you do.
As you do. Now, there was a very impious and cruel king who actually tried to trick Zeus, who was the king of the gods, into eating human flesh. Now, he wasn't deceived. He was like, I don't think so. I'm more clever than you. And he got a bit annoyed and devastated the earth with Deucalion's flood.
Yeah, I think that's obviously what the Christian God got Noah to survive, isn't it?
Mm. Now, the king himself, the cruel king, Lycaon, was turned into a wolf. Zeus went, nah, you're going to go wolf style, mate.
Yeah.
And apparently this story was told in order to explain an extraordinary ceremony that took place in Lycia. Now, this was in honour of Zeus and happened at Mount Lycaeus. I'm really good at these pronunciations tonight, aren't I?
Right, brilliant, and you're so much better than I am. I'm not even attempting.
Oh, my Lord. According to Plato, we love Plato. Plato is an awesome storyteller. This ceremony was believed to involve human sacrifice, the human giving, symbolising the trying to trick Zeus into eating human flesh, and it involved a human sacrifice. And obviously, lycanthropy, which is assuming the wolf form of a wolf. Now, this rite was allegedly still practised in the 2nd century.
Yeah, they even teach them about it in Hogwarts.
Hold your horses on that, because we're going to come to that bit. Now, there were also some forms of warriors in Greece that used to wear fur on their feet to represent wolf hoofs, as it were, paws, wolf feet, because it gave them the prowess of a wolf in battle.
That's what he told them.
That's what they said. Mm-hmm. But that's still, when you think about it in regards to time, 2nd century AD, that's relatively modernish.
Well, yeah, I can sort of understand what you're saying, but I don't buy the whole, we put this stuff on our feet and it makes us as nimble as wolves, Really? No.
Yeah, again.
On the stairs and stuff like that, you'd hear them coming. You really would.
But you've got to look at various cultures around the world who do wear, capes of pelts and horns in their helmets, and even down to to get the traits of the animal that they want to portray. That you can see that through various cultures, actually.
Yeah, but that's mainly to keep warm, I think. I don't think there's anything in it other than that. And I mean, with the horns on their helmets, I think that's more indicative of Vikings. But they do believe that they didn't actually have the horns on their helmets.
Well, I was going back a bit further. I was thinking of the worship of Kyranos. I think that's his name. I can't remember the exact name. He's god of the forest.
Do you know what? It might not. They might have had. It's their equivalent of the beer hats. We've got the hats with the can holders for the beer. They used to drink out of horns, didn't they?
They did.
Back then. So that's probably what it was. It was a beer hat.
Okay. And actually, a lot of Chinese medicine, some of the mythology on that isn't, yes, they believe certain products that come from animals help with certain medical conditions, but some of that is also so you can take on the abilities of the animal, which is something which we find abhorrent in the Western world, but that belief system is still very much alive and kicking, unfortunately. The black market trade in animal parts has endangered a lot of animals, and for us, this is quite relevant.
There was actually a TV series in the 80s about a man that could change into different animals.
Beastmaster.
Was it Beastmaster or was it called Manimal?
Oh, I can't remember which it was called. I thought it was called Beastmaster.
I think there was a UK one called Manimal. It's got a guy in it from Casualty.
Oh, right. Of course, casualty comes in. But when you think about it, we look at China, particularly even recently, the wet markets in China, where they're eating animals we wouldn't even dream of eating, but they just don't have a problem with it. You know, it's food is food. You know what I mean? The fresher, the better, right?
Oh, yeah, I've seen some of the stuff they eat. That's rank.
For us, it is because we're not brought up with that. But in that,
Yeah,
I'm not
no.
saying it's right. I'm not saying I agree with it. But what I'm saying is that is their belief system. Do you know what I mean? They're quite happy to eat. We have domesticised a lot of animals, like the dog. Yeah. And for us, when we see the horrific celebrations that they do in regards to the dog meat market and all that, we find that absolutely abhorrent because of our relationship with the dog. They have a different relationship with them. It is changing. I will say that the attitude to some of what they eat over there is now changing. Their attitudes are changing. There was a big dog killing festival that's actually been shut down now. They won't do that now. But it doesn't change the fact that we see horrific images because their attitude towards animals is different to us, which is why, you know, for us, we were like, they eat bats. It come from a wet market, you know, like in the recent times. For them, that's kind of normal. For us, that's abhorrent. We haven't got that in our society.
It's that, I mean, okay, I can understand about the dogs, you know, but no, that's not what I was thinking because I actually understand that. But it's the scorpions and spiders, and tarantulas, and especially like in like who you was talking about, they have eggs with baby chickens in them, and they eat them.
But that's normal to them.
Yeah, I couldn't think of anything worse.
No, I can't either, and I would dread going there on a holiday and knowing what to order because you don't know what you might get.
Yeah, but again, you know, I've often said to you, like jokingly, I actually wonder what went through the mind, why this bloke thought suddenly, oh, look at that garden snail. I wonder if that tastes nice. And then born was escargot.
Wow.
Or even like cow's milk.
Yeah.
It's like, see a baby cow drink the mother's milk and thought, oh, I'll have a taste of that.
Or maybe that came from desperation. You know, we've said this many times, inspiration comes from adversity. If you've got a baby that's screaming and crying and you're not producing milk and you're in the middle of nowhere, but you have got cows and you know that the calf will drink the mother's milk, maybe that's where it came from originally. They tried the baby with the cow's milk and that's, boom, milk industry. You know, who knows? You know.
Yeah, but they come out with goat's milk and...
Yeah, but again, if that's all you've got is a goat and you need milk for a baby, then you try it, don't you?
Yeah.
If you've got a problem. Anyway, we've got well off topic on this. But anyway, this... Oh, dear. Bring back Richard. We stay on topic a lot more is all I can say. Anyway, this ceremony involved a human sacrifice, right? And, you know, about assuming the form of a wolf. And it was still practiced in the 2nd century. And on that note, we're actually going to take a break. Before we go into the second half of the show, we're going to have a little bit of a closer look at lycanthropy. Oh my goodness. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
And welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Now, before the break, we definitely need Richard back because we go off topic a hell of a lot without him, don't we, darling?
No, we're doing all right. Everything's linked to the wolf, and yeah, that's fine. We just found some interesting facts out there that everyone should know. Especially when they all play Trivial Pursuit and they get a question on it and they go, oh, Paul told me about that.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a little bit of a deeper look at lycanthropy, which is basically werewolfism, right?
It is, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, again, it's unclear exactly when and where the legend originated. Some people, scholars mainly, believe the werewolf made its debut in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now, that actually was, I believe, if I remember rightly from my dragon lore, where dragons first come up too.
Okay.
Right? That's a fascinating topic in itself, the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's a bit long-winded, though. And basically, Gilgamesh jilted a potential lover because she had turned her previous mate into a wolf. How disrespectful of her.
Yeah, see, I don't bother with that. But I do think, obviously, because I've got this medical background, there is that condition. It's hypertrichosis, if I remember rightly, and that's
We get
basically
to that.
werewolf syndrome. Yeah, that's where it's come from.
Yeah, we get to that. Don't worry, we've covered it further down.
Okay.
Now, they also emerged in early Nordic folklore. We've already talked about Odin. But the saga of Volsung tells the story of a father and son who discovered wolf pelts that had the power to turn people into wolves for 10 days. Now, obviously, the father and son thought this was a good idea, donned the pelts, transformed into wolves, and went on a killing rampage in the forest.
Oh.
As you do. And their rampage ended when the father attacked his son, causing a lethal wound. The son only survived because a raven gave the father a leaf with healing powers. Ravens again, see?
That's nice.
That's nice. And wasn't it, in a nursery rhyme, wasn't it Red Riding Hood? He was supposed to have a pelt that turned him into a wolf. He had werewolfism. So the wolf and the granny, it wasn't actually a wolf, it was her little Red Riding Hood's bow, as it were. Or is that something completely different am I thinking of?
No, I've got a vague... what you saying there, I've got a vague recollection of that, but I don't know if it... Was it Red Riding Hood? I don't know. It could be.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure that's the grim version of it. Yeah. It was her bow that was sitting there rather than it being a... Anyway, what big teeth you've got.
We'll have to do grim stories.
Yeah, we are going to have to look and see how they got sanitised over the years with grim. I do feel that is important at some point. Anyway, so, that was in Nordic folklore with the pelts transforming them into wolves, and the father ended up causing a lethal wound to the son, and the raven gave the father a leaf with healing powers. Brilliant, right? Now, many werewolves from centuries ago were actually serial killers.
Okay.
Right, so, it kind of got blamed on werewolfism when actually they were just serial killers. France actually has its fair share, because in 1521... Pierre Burgot and Michel Verdun swore allegiance to the devil, apparently, and claimed to have this ointment. The devil gave them this ointment that turned them into wolves. Great excuse, that one.
It is, isn't it?
They confessed to brutally murdering several children.
Doesn't that then become an act of God?
Well, it's not God, is it? It's the devil.
No, but he's the god of the underworld or whatever, isn't it? So it'll be an act of God.
Who's the god of the underworld?
The devil.
Oh, yes. Well,
yeah.
No, because he's not considered a god, is he?
I mean, Hades. Hades was a god of the underworld.
Nicely pulled out of the memory banks there.
Yeah.
Except this is in France in 1521, not in Greek mythology.
It's the same thing.
Well, the guys both got burned to death at the stake, and burning was actually thought of one of the few ways to kill a werewolf. I think fire is the main way of purging most mythical beasts, mythical beasties off the planet, really.
Yeah, I think fire's pretty much a conclusive one.
Mm-hmm. Now, Giles Garnier, known as the Werewolf of Dole, was another 16th century Frenchman whose claim to fame was an ointment with wolf morphing abilities. According to legend, as a wolf, he viciously killed children and ate them. God, they did a lot of killing of children back in these days, didn't they? And
yeah,
he
they
too.
did a bit. Maybe he was one of the copycat killers.
Well, it does make you wonder, doesn't it, with the ointment thing from the devil?
Yeah.
But he didn't prosper on that one, but he didn't get away with it either because he was burned to death for his crimes as well. Now, here we go. We go into were they mentally ill? Were they acting under the influence of hallucinogenic substances, or were they just simply serial killers?
Yeah, I think maybe they were just serial killers that were trying to explain logically why they would do it, and they're just going to the extremes for doing it.
Back then, though, that wouldn't have been an extreme because the belief system in, the devil and God was incredibly strong at that time.
Yeah,
the whole, your belief system, we've conversed with the devil. He gave us this ointment. The ointment could well have been given to them and have hallucinogenic properties, which did change their behaviour into children killing serial killers. Think about how we get the ointment for, allegedly, witches flying. Hallucinogenic substances that were entered into the body via means, shall we say, vaginal insertion by a broomstick, generally, hence why the broomstick, perfect tool, right, for that kind of application. But that was actually supposed to be for period pains, like women's troubles. So but it actually was hallucinogenic and made you have all sorts of great trips of flying through the air on a blinking broomstick. And that's where we get that symbology from for witches. So it is possible that they used an ointment that may have been given to them by the local healer for a condition, which we don't know what that condition would be, that actually when they were under the influence of it, did actually bring out the worst qualities in them.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Particularly if it was a mental health thing.
That is a very good point, and it could actually be something as simple as that.
So they say the devil gave it to them. The devil may be their way of saying the woman or the person that gave it to them was actually the devil. Who knows? Without further details on either of those cases, that we wouldn't know. Women are the devil. I've been told that many times.
Yeah, that was the song as well, wasn't it? Devil Woman.
She's just a devil woman.
That's the one.
Yeah.
More useless information for that game of Trivial Pursuit.
Who was it sung by? Do you know?
No.
Cliff
no
Richard.
Idea. That's it. Yeah, I knew that really.
Right, so let's have a little look at the Bedburg werewolf. Now, Peter Stubb, he was a wealthy 15th century farmer in Bedburg, Bedburg in Germany. Now, he's apparently the most notorious werewolf of them all, because apparently, according to folklore, he actually turned into a wolf-like creature at night and devoured many citizens of Bedburg. I'm going to say Bedburg all night now. Now, Peter was eventually blamed for the killings after being cornered by hunters. Now, the hunters claimed that they actually saw him shapeshift from wolf to human form. So they reckon that that's what they witnessed.
Yeah. Did they though, or were they on that ointment?
I was thinking, though, on this one, right, it's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde character. So when he's under maybe a mental psychosis or a mental breakdown, his physical, how he carries himself physically might be more animalistic than human. But then when he gets cornered by the hunters, so like maybe he's hunched over, maybe his hands are like clawed out, maybe he's snarling at them, and then in the lamplight, gotta remember lamplight, not electricity back then, right? Maybe his, the psychosis leaves him and he goes back to being stood up, calm, not snarly, quite an amiable kind of character. So it may have been not a shape-shifting scenario, but a body language action transformation.
Yeah, and you don't even know what these hunters were doing when they cornered him. You know, it could be just a fact that his mood changed, and it was just he became animal-like because he was trying to get away from the hunters.
Yeah, you don't know, do you? But that kind of makes more sense to me than
Yeah.
they actually saw him shapeshift. But that was the defence. That's actually said in court. He experienced a lot of torture to confess to the crimes. Now, he didn't just kill children on this one. He killed men, women, children, animals, basically anything he got. And he also ate their remains. You know, once he killed them, he was eating them as well.
Yeah, you don't want to do you?
Yeah. Now, he declared that he owned an enchanted belt that gave him the power to transform into a wolf, even at will. So he tried the defence of, but I've got a belt. I put the belt on, and that changes me into a werewolf. Hello, how can no one believe that? Because the belt was never found. He was executed, obviously. Now, Peter's guilt is controversial. Some people believe he wasn't a killer, but just the victim of a political witch hunt. Which again, we've seen that when we looked at the plague, you know, the Black Death plague. We saw witch hunts happen in regards to anti-Semitism, which came off the back of the Black Death. It caused division and fear, and people were looking for scapegoats as to why they were being cursed with this Black Death plague. And unfortunately, in Europe, anti-Semitism became quite a scapegoat for them, and a lot of villages of Jews were wiped out in that time as well. So history repeats, right? You know, and so maybe this was a political witch hunt.
Yeah, it sounds like, doesn't it, really?
And then the worry at the time, maybe like there was the way the deaths were for the animals and people and children, it was very animalistic, so they blamed it on a werewolf with the you know, that folklore belief system that there's a werewolf on the rampage, and that builds. And you know, when we looked at the witch hunts, we saw how women who were just healers basically did their best to heal people, and it didn't work maybe once, and then became the scapegoat for all the deaths in the neighbourhood, you know, because they were maybe the outcast of the village generally, but were the healer of the village. You don't upset her because she'll cause a curse instead. Do you know what I mean? It's a very double-edged sword on this one. Yeah. But they do think he possibly was the victim of a political witch hunt rather than him being an actual werewolf. I still wonder why he used the defence of, I've got a belt, an enchanted belt that gives me the power to transform to a wolf as a defence mechanism. You know, but then I suppose when you've been tortured, you'll admit to anything.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Now, shape-shifting is a thing, right? You know, even now, people talk about shapeshifters, don't they, in the paranormal field?
They do, indeed.
Yeah, now, werewolves shapeshifted will, due to a curse. That's the thing with werewolves. Others have help, such as a enchanted belt or a wolf pelt or something. Or they become wolves after they've been scratched or bitten by a werewolf. Or in some cases, you have an ointment that turns you.
Yeah, you have an ointment.
So there are many ways. And in other stories, a person can only turn into a wolf when there's a full moon.
Yeah,
but I think that sometimes goes back to the full moon theory. People turn a bit bonkers around the full moon. Having said that, we've just had the wolf moon, the wolf full moon, haven't we?
Have we? Okay, I'll take your word.
Yeah. It was last Thursday. We had the full wolf moon. God, I have to separate those words, otherwise I get a bit blah, blah, blah with them. But full moons kind of have got this mythology around them themselves regarding wolfism, that people turn into. They're more aggressive. They're more mental health breakdowns happen under a full moon. You know, people act weirdly, or they get wiped out by the energy of a full moon. Now, there was a study done between the August of 2008 and July of 2009, right? There were 91 violent acute behavioural incidences at a hospital. Right, this was the Australian Cavalry Mater Newcastle Hospital. God, that's a mouthful.
He's a bit in it.
Right, so this is one particular hospital, and they took it from August of 2008 to July 2009 to see if this is true, whether the full moon actually does have an effect. And there was 91 incidences at the hospital, and 23% of that happened during a full moon.
Okay. So there is some sort of scientific basis on that then?
Well, I don't think you need statistics to back that up, because you talk to any service person or medical person and they always kind of go, is it a full moon?
Yeah, I must admit we do that as well.
So I do think it's like sort of an unspoken, not necessarily proven kind of thing that goes on.
Yeah.
But 23% under a full moon is, bearing in mind, you look at how many full moons happened in that period of time, you know, how many instances happened. You have to break that down a lot more into statistics, I feel. Because what they don't tell us is that out of those 91 incidences, how many of those maybe fell on a Friday, or how many of those fell on a Saturday. Forget the full moon in that. You need other statistics to garner how the 23% is in fact important. Because you could find that 50% of that happened on a Friday. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to get a kind of valid balance of stats, you need all the information. You can't just look at one thing. But 23% did happen during a full moon. So anyway, that's a different. When you look at figures and statistics, you do have to kind of bear in mind exactly what the statistic is looking at against what data and what time period, and a lot of demographics involved in that. So that's one thing I would say, actually. It's all well and good people throwing facts and figures out, but you have to have all the information as to where they got that figure from, which, again, is quite relevant for today, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, some of the behaviour that they experienced from the patients who had these incidences were displaying wolf-like behaviours such as biting, spitting and scratching. Now, they did say that most of this was under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time, but they weren't quite sure why they became that intensely violent when the moon was full.
Mm-hmm.
So out of those 23%, they've then looked at the incidences that happened on the full moon and gone, well, you could put them down as wolf-like. We have got drugs and alcohol involved, but we kind of don't know why why they've gone to that level of intensity in their violence, and they've put that down to the full moon.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. Again, with the medical background, I've noticed that myself.
Uh-huh. Now, we have another feral child. Now, this is like from a medical perspective. Peter, the wild boy, in 1725, he was found wandering naked on all fours through a German forest. Many thought he was a werewolf, or at least raised by wolves. He ate with his hands and couldn't speak. He was adopted by the courts of King George I and King George II, and basically became a pet in England. Nice, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now,
I wonder where they kept him.
I don't know. I only found that reference to it, but again, I didn't go much deeper than that because, I wanted to move on quite quickly because, a lot of information, 2-hour show. So they think that Peter likely had Pitt-Hopkins syndrome. Now, this was a syndrome that was discovered in 1978. Now, bearing in mind, there's a huge time difference for poor old Peter back in the George's days. But this causes lack of speech, seizures, distinct facial features, difficulty breathing and intellectual challenges. So that's what they think he had when they examined that case. Okay. But there are other medical conditions that encouraged werewolf mania. Now, lycanthropy is a rare psychological condition that causes people to believe they're changing into a wolf or animal. They don't change, they believe that they are. And it's a psychological condition, a form of psychosis. which is where the name lycanthropy actually comes from. Right? Food poisoning.
Okay.
That one. The one you mentioned, hypertrichosis.
Hypertrichosis.
That's the one. That causes excessive hair growth. And if you think back to the P.T. Barnum show, there was a kid and a man that he had on show there called Wolf Boy, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rabies. Well, if you get bitten by a rabid animal, that causes you, to foam at the mouth and act in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And because you see that happening in animals, you then go, well, the human gets that too. Hallucination, possibly caused by hallucinogenic herbs. Good old mushrooms come back in there. Yummy. Particularly if you think about where they are, the German cases in particular. It's not far from Amsterdam, is it?
No, it's true.
Well, it's probably miles away. It's my geography again, it's probably. But it's the same landmass.
Yeah.
And it is known also that people use werewolves and other mythical beasts to explain the unexplainable. Right? That's taken as read. We always put our frame of reference, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Again, it's all down to frame of reference. Most believe that werewolves have got nothing more than pop culture these days. Give me some famous Hollywood movies that you've watched to do with werewolves.
American Werewolf in Paris.
Mm-hmm. American Werewolf in London.
Yeah. Oh, God, there's so many of them. You've got the Wolfman in your research.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Harry Potter is. Oh, God, I'm trying to think.
It's a bit like vampires, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's cult following for werewolves.
Twilight as well, wasn't it?
Twilight, yeah. Oh, that was a good film. I love that film. Everyone goes, oh, it's awful. I loved it.
Yeah, it's awful.
I might have to. They've got on Netflix recently. I might have to watch them.
Oh, dear.
Sorry, everybody. I do like a cheesy. Now, they've got this cult following werewolves the same as vampires do. But there are still werewolf sightings reported every year. Believe it or not, it's true.
How do they know? I mean, is this like an American thing, or is it like all over the world?
It tends to be. It does tend to be more the Americans, but it tends to get more now.
It's a werewolf. It might just be Bigfoot.
Well, I think the thing what you have to look at or consider there is now we wouldn't necessarily call it werewolf. We call it shapeshifter. So when you start looking at some of the accounts, you would put it down to shapeshifting, not necessarily werewolf. But we have a homegrown werewolf.
Yes, we do.
Now, this actually happened local to me.
Yeah.
Southend-on-Sea.
Yeah.
And he's known as the Southend Werewolf. Now, this is a very strange tale. Now, William Ramsey, lovely, gentle, mild-mannered, nice guy, right?
Well, apparently so. I've never met the geezer.
In general life. Now, the first inkling of trouble came when he was actually 9 years old. He was playing outside in the back garden. He began to feel strange. Now, this is in 1952. Now, he says it feels like an icy blast of frigid cold comes over him. So he's like got this cold sweat going on. And then he smells a foul stench. And it's that strong, it makes him want to vomit. Now, at that point, he reports that he only had two things on his mind. One was running away for a life on the ocean wave, and wolves, right? Now, he was close to the garden fence, and it was only the calls of his mother that brought him out of what had gripped him. But in between all of that, he was filled with intense and pure rage, right? Adrenaline is flowing through his body at this stage, so he now has like super strength for his age. He uproots a fence post and the fence is still attached. He's swinging it around like a club. The parents didn't know quite what to do about this, to be fair. This 9-year-old child then starts to gnaw on the wire meshing with his mouth. The parents run for the hills. They're like, what the hell are we going to do with our child? But then literally, it leaves him as quickly as it comes.
Interesting.
Right, and that was when he was 9. That was the first incident.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't happen again. So, it was like an anomaly at that time. But 15 years later, by then he'd grown up, got married, he's, got 3 kids. He was, in the first 2 years of his marriage, he was actually had really bad nightmares. And the dream was the same. Results ended up the same as well. He always woke up in a cold sweat, had feelings of dread and unease, and he was always like, it was like he was witnessing this from 2 steps behind. He was never, it was never him, but he was always sort of like removed from that. But he was always, this was always the same dream, the same feelings, and his wife would turn to face him and run away in extreme terror. And it was only in 1967 that those dreams ended. And then after that, he woke up one night to hear what he thought of a panting wild animal inside the bedroom, but then kind of found it was himself. Now, this kind of, at this point, you think, because he's got that separation going on now, you kind of think maybe split personality, or it kind of sounds a bit schizophrenia, where you have something external of your body influencing your behaviour.
Yeah.
But that was it. After this period of time, this went away. And again, nothing happened for 15 years. Now, 1983. He's out with his mates at a local pub. No problem, right? Several drinks later, he began to feel some icy chills. Again, he's thinking, uh-oh. So he goes to the loo, toilet, and looks in the mirror and sees a wolf staring back at him.
Okay.
So he thinks, I better go home. Had a bit too much to drink. So on their way home, without any warning, he suddenly begins to growl, turns to his fellow passenger, both of his hands are twisted into claws, and he tries to bite the leg of his friend. The driver didn't panic. Calm friend. He stopped the car, made attempts to get the Bill out of the back of the car. Took several minutes, because he's got this superhuman strength going on. So it took quite an effort to get him out of the car. And then the frenzy had gone again. It just left him. Right? So again, it's like, what the hell was that, Bill? He's like, I don't know. Again, another break in time, and 18 months pass. Bill, this is in 1983, he begins to suffer from chest pains, and he thinks, oh God, I'm having a heart attack. So he goes to the emergency room of the local hospital. Halfway through a blood pressure examination, he sank his teeth into the arm of the nurse. She ran through the ward, right, going, oh my God, help. And witnesses say that Bill had hunched shoulders, his hands are curled into talons or claws, he bared his lips like a rabid animal. Anybody that dared approach him was actually knocked down really easily. Again, we've got that superhuman strength. And it took quite a few people working as a team to subdue him. A police officer finally managed to place handcuffs around Ramsey's wrists, but that was not sufficient. They had to tranquilise him.
That's the bit of the story that I did actually hear.
Yeah. Now, the following morning, the tranquilizers had worn off. So had this frenzy, or whatever you want to call it. He had breakfast. The doctor listened to the whole story. And so, better keep you under observation. Right? But because there was nothing physically wrong with him, he was a voluntary patient. You can check yourself out if you're a voluntary patient. You don't have to. So, he did. He checked himself out. 2 months later, in January, he had just finished a visit to his mother when he felt another attack coming on. He actually did make it to the same hospital. The attending nurse was alone with Ramsey in the emergency room, and she said she feared for her life. Told Ramsey she was going to find a doctor. Ramsey threw to one side and lunged for an orderly. It just so happened there were 4 police officers in the hospital in the area and immediately circled Ramsey. Now, this kind of went on for a bit. Now, Ramsey was snarling, growling at them, you know, the same thing, hunched hands, all of the same thing. Now, it took 4 of them to subdue him. One of the 4 officers actually suffered wounds so severe that he actually ended up in hospital for 4 days himself. They managed to handcuff Ramsey again. Now, they got him to the squad car because at this point they're not really thinking medical. They're thinking, you've just attacked a police officer. So they walk him to the squad car and they managed to get him there without much incident. And he came to his senses again. He arrived at the local police station. They talked to the police surgeon. They considered checking him into a mental institution, but decided against it. And he was clearly in control and rational again, so he was released.
Yeah.
In 1987, he was back at the police station. However, he'd made a citizen's arrest to a local teenage prostitute and he drove her to the station. The second he parked his car, she fled into the station, and then Ramsey felt the same sensations come over him. Now, the officer, who was a lot larger than Ramsey, started to question him, made the mistake of gently touching him on his arm, and that was it. He went, right? The officer was thrown to the ground and was having the life choked out of him until help finally came. And Ramsey was so wild that it took 12 policemen to hold him down and 2 injections to finally restrain him. Now, for the next 10 days, he had countless MRIs, X-rays, psychiatric tests, and there was nothing wrong with him. There's obviously something going on because he's, you know, a rational, mild-mannered, nice person to, you know, this animalistic, raging berserker. There's some, and it's in the space of minutes. We're not talking like we're not getting a lot of warning signs on this.
Yeah, it's pretty much like an instant switch, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, in London, and I hasten to... I'm not a fan, to be fair, of Ed and Lorraine Warren, but they were visiting London, and Bill's story appeared on the television at the time of their stay. Now, Lorraine Warren immediately considered that Bill was being possessed, got in touch with the police station in Southend, and ended up speaking to Mr. Ramsey. They negotiated with him, and they finally convinced him to come to their church in Connecticut and undergo an exorcism with their own specialist, Bishop Robert McKenna. Bill did go. He did make the trip with his wife in 1989. Now, the tabloid press got involved. They sponsored the trip. The night before the exorcism was due to take place, Ramsey tried to strangle his wife while she slept. Bless her. She was like, yeah, you are definitely having this exorcism. I don't care what you say, you're having it. That's what she said. Now, when it began, Bill wasn't actually very impressed. The service was being conducted in Latin, and for half an hour, nothing happened. Then all of a sudden, Bill took on an entirely different appearance. His face contorted, both his hands formed claws, and McKenna commanded the demon to leave. The full force of werewolf fury descended on McKenna one time and then disappeared for good, and the whole event was recorded on film.
Ooh. Wouldn't mind seeing that.
It is out there.
I've not seen it. So
okay. I'll have to find it and share the link to the page. Now, his last public appearance, Bill Ramsey this is, was actually in 1992 when he updated his progress, and basically, just before the exorcism, the transformations were increasing in both frequency and seriousness, and that kind of was what drove him to go for the exorcism. Since he had that, there have been no incidents recorded. Right? That was about 15 years ago now. So that was in 1992. So what's 15 years on 1992? I'll let you do the math on that.
Oh, I'm no good at maths. Having a laugh, ain't you?
That brings us pretty much up to now,
Yeah.
doesn't it? So that's 8 years,
Yeah.
and then we're on 2021, or 2020 really, innit? So yeah, we're just over that. So, and we've not heard anything from Bill Ramsey since then.
No.
So it obviously worked. But then there were long gaps in between. So was he possessed? Was he possessed by a wolf or a hashtag demon?
I don't know. I really don't know what the matter with him was, but it's an interesting story, definitely. Um, as for him being a werewolf, I'm not so sure.
I think personally that this is probably some form of mental illness, a bit like an epilepsy. You don't always have episodes of
Yeah.
epilepsy. You can have long gaps in between problems with that, can't you? And we know so much more nowadays than, I mean, even going back to the 1980s, things are so different now to what they were. When people are, I know him, I do know him, unfortunately. One of my local characters who is an alcoholic, but when the police come for him, because he's a bit of a rogue character, when they try and arrest him, he is superhuman strength. It takes several of them to bring him down, and that's not werewolfism, that is just him going into an adrenaline-filled rage.
Yeah.
That is alcohol-induced, I'm not going to lie, but it proves that you don't have to have werewolfism and necessarily to have superhuman strength.
No, absolutely not.
Do you know what I mean?
It's
When you're full of adrenaline, it's amazing. You see women lift cars off babies. There are instances of that before now, under extreme stress and tension, and there's been an accident or something, and you see people perform superhuman strength things under adrenaline. It's an amazing thing we have in our bodies. Adrenaline, it can work for you, it can work against you, but it's that fight or flight kick, isn't it?
Yeah,
Although
it
I
is,
would
yeah.
say, with looking at these instances, there's no trigger there. It just seems to come over him. But he does act in other ways, like the clawed hands, the hunchback, the snarling. He almost goes to an animal state.
Yeah.
They call it the werewolf. They call it the werewolf of Southend. But that's only because they haven't got another name for it. But it could be it's just brain switches into pre-social times of fright or flight, and the adrenaline that's filling him, he's into a fight mode without... I'm trying to explain... I don't know, but I'm trying to see maybe a possible reason rather than it being possessed by a demon. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Because I do find Ed and Lorraine Warren questionable at times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really buy into the whole thing that they were going on about, and especially with the movies that have been coming out left, right, and centre. I don't buy that either. I don't know. I really don't know about this one.
No, I don't either. Don't quite what to make of it. But if they did, okay, let's flip the coin. Forget medical, forget it being a condition. What if he was possessed? At various times.
Like he was a werewolf.
And the exorcism did work. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll never know.
I've been seeing a lot of this actually out on the social medias as well, like even from some high people in the paranormal of there's no such thing as demons and it's all Zach Baggins hype. But when we spoke, it is a belief system, but every belief system has a lower level energy that is working in either a normal way, like not negative or positive, neutral, that's the word I'm searching for there, a neutral way, which could be good or bad. Why have we got this mythology if there's nothing at all to it? Have we just made this all up effectively to explain our surroundings, you know, to make sense of our surroundings, do we make things like that up for ourselves, or is there something to it? You know, when you invoke in regards to manifestation techniques and you see results from that, we've even heard from, you know, our producer, our lovely producer, Andy Mercer, that when he's done work in certain ways, like occult ways, it seems to have had an effect.
Yeah.
We've even witnessed that when we've done, you know, when he's been out with us and we've invoked certain things. And what happened was strange. It wasn't groundbreaking demons coming out the woodwork, but the natural effects was very strange. Coincidence?
Yeah, I must admit, I do like Andy coming out with us because, you know, he's got that background in occult. And I actually like to experience that. You know, so when we get him to come out, I've always asked him to bring his, like, the bone whistle thing that he's got.
Yeah.
I find that absolutely fascinating. And it really does bring, like, a strange atmosphere, and it does work. But then is that because we're expecting it?
Yeah, you believe it because it's from somebody you trust and have faith in.
Yeah.
But even he himself, you know, his day job, he's you know, he's a psychiatrist in real life. He's very good at psychology. He knows his stuff. You know, he's not given to flights of fancy.
No, that's right.
And when you talk to people that work in this way, they're invoking, I'm going to put air quote, entity. I'm not going to label them demon, but entity, which is not of this world, not of the physical world as per se. And having done it myself, it does seem to have an effect. The sequence of events is interesting.
Yep, sure is.
So,
and that's what I find fascinating.
And that's where you find fascinating. It's so easy to go, no, there ain't no such thing as demons, or there's no such thing as elementals, and there's no... But until you've worked in that way, you can look at it from different angles. And this is the worry, isn't it? This is why people become so dismissive, because they'll approach it from a psychological way and go, well, you've primed your mind and you're pulling up, you know, archetypal types from a deep subconscious, you know, and all that sort of thing. So you can kind of explain it from a psychological perspective.
Yeah.
But when you're seeing effects actually in the real world, you know, like in the reality side, it does make you question it.
Yeah, it does.
It does. But we can't go much further, basically. Now, we have to talk about Fenrir Greyback. Now, he was a werewolf, in Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter.
Yay.
He was notorious for savagery and preference for attacking children. You know, again, the same themes coming through, right? But obviously, J.K. Rowling, in the Harry Potter books, if you actually go a bit deeper, there's a lot she's included from older folklore and mythology and woven it into her tale. Now, Fenrir Greyback was a leader in his community and strived to infect as many people as possible, which is how come Remus Lupin ends up having the werewolf problem, right?
Yes, he does. Yeah, it's a very inconvenient issue he's got.
Because he was infected by it.
He's not even a very nice-looking werewolf either.
Well, he is one of the Death Eaters, and none of them are that great, are they?
No.
That's the theme. You always find in films the good-looking ones tend to be the good guys and the bad ones are the bad guys, right? We looked at that when we we talked about Hunchback of Notre Dame. Anyway,
No, Remus Lupin, he was the teacher, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was a good guy.
That's what I'm saying. They're always more likeable, more comfortable characters to look at, whereas Fenrir Greyback was ugly and horrible.
Yeah.
So you you know who's going to be the baddie.
Yeah. Yeah, because when Remus turned into the werewolf, he was like all scrawny and loads of ribs everywhere, and he just looked horrible.
Yeah, but he was a werewolf by then. Anyway, that was actually based on a Nordic legend.
Yeah, Sirius Black. He was a Animagus. That was it, wasn't he? The animagus was the ones that could turn into werewolves and stuff at their will.
Yeah, it didn't. It was you changed into an animal because you've got to remember McGonagall changed into a cat.
Yeah,
that was her animagus, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, McGonagall used to turn into a cat.
Yeah, but that was because of a spell, wasn't it?
No, I thought that was just because she was an animagus, the same as old Sirius.
No, I think an animagus was someone who had that werewolf gene that could turn to a werewolf at will when he wanted to.
But he didn't turn into a werewolf. Sirius Black turned into a black dog.
Dog. Yeah, a black dog.
Black Shuck, wasn't it?
That's the animagus. Yeah, that's the Black Shuck.
Yeah, well, hers was a cat.
Remus was a werewolf.
He was infected, and that's why he became a werewolf.
You need to go back and listen to...
No, I think you need to go back and reread them books. Because Remus was infected by Fenrir Greyback. Sirius was never infected. He could change at will.
Okay.
So could McGonagall into a cat. Different, mate. Different.
That's not what they do in the films.
It is.
It's not.
Go back.
Go into that lesson that Hermione Granger had.
All right. What, with the polyjuice?
No. When they...
Oh God, we've gone into a Harry Potter argument now. Well, I'm going to Google this while we're talking. Was McGonagall a animagus?
No, it's a spell.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all to do with dogs and stuff.
Right, it actually comes up as a Google search, I would say this.
Okay.
A wizard's animagus form may reflect their corporeal patroness. Minerva McGonagall was one such case, both being known cat animagus and having a cat patroness. Right?
Bonus.
Yeah. Whatever. All right. So she was. That was hers. All right. Just saying. Correct, Kerry, again. Anyway, this was based, actually, after that argument. You can see how our Skype calls go overnight, can't you, everybody? Yeah. We have many of these discussions. This was actually based on a Nordic legend. Fenrir was also called Fenrisulfur. Again, pronunciations. He was a monstrous wolf of Norse mythology. He was the son of the talking of demons, god Loki and giantess Angerboda. I can say that one. Yeah. Fearing Fenrir's strength and knowing that only evil could be expected of him, the gods bound him with a magical chain made of the sound of cats' footsteps, the beard of a woman, the breath of fish, and other occult elements. When the chain was placed upon him, Fenrir bit off the hand of the god Tyr. He was gagged with a sword and was destined to lie bound to a rock until the Ragnarok, doomsday basically, when he will break his bonds and fall upon the gods. So the gods are a bit worried because when Ragnarok, or whatever is that word?
Ragnarok.
That's the one. A little bit worried about that. Anyway, according to one legend or one version of the myth, Fenrir will devour the sun. In Ragnarok, he will fight against the chief god Odin and swallow him. Odin's son Vidar will avenge his father by stabbing the wolf to the heart, according to one account, and tearing his jaws asunder, according to another. Fenrir figures prominently in Norwegian and Icelandic poetry of the 10th and 11th centuries. And they all are a bit worried of the day when he breaks his chain.
Yeah.
There you go. Fenrir.
Yeah.
Based on a true legend.
End of the world stuff.
End of the world. Okay, so Ragnarok.
Yeah.
That's something I've heard recently. Is that Marvel or DC? That's Marvel, isn't it?
Marvel. It's Marvel. It was Thor Ragnarok.
So Thor Doomsday, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I've heard it.
It's like the end of Asgard, as we know it.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
Yes, it is.
And on that note, we've actually come to the end of the show. Oh, dear. Right. We don't want any Harry Potter comments. Thank you very much. Off the back of the show. But it does show that the legends of the raven and the wolf flow through folklore and mythology quite a lot, really.
Yeah, it does.
And it's fascinating because I came up with so much from so many different cultures.
Yeah, but we've only scratched the surface because it goes into so many other cultures as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Red Indians, Native Americans.
Yeah, I didn't even go down that road. I literally stuck to the Western, sort of like Europe and England sort of areas, really. I didn't go further afield, and there's a lot more to it. So if you're interested in ravens or werewolves, then I suggest you go and do a little digging yourself.
Yep.
Find the whole thing very fascinating, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue next week on the theme of animals in the paranormal, but we're going to go for a slightly different angle on that one. Looking forward to that. So join us next Tuesday for your usual dollop, there's a word, of Paranormal Concept Show. On that note, say goodnight, my darling.
Good night, my darling.
Good night.